All right, impromptu video time, because there was a perfect storm of factors. One, my studio is set up. Two, I'm procrastinating on another video that had to take a lot of time to prepare. And three, my friend Chris at Chris Bookish Cauldron just tweeted out another top 25 fantasy list, and come on, we all love lists, right? So I thought I would just do a reaction. I have not looked, well, I looked at the first one and I approved, and then I was like, let's make a video, because then again I can procrastinate a little longer. So let's check out. This is from, oh wait, I should screen recording. This is from a site called ProWritingAid.com. I don't know if they're legit. Again, I saw their number one on their list, which, let's just get to that right now. Number one is Game of Thrones by G.R.R. Martin. Maybe not a creative pick, but if we're talking best of all time, let's be honest, creativity is not the number one thing that we need to judge it on. Obviously the book is very creative, but I mean, like, trying to have hipster deep pulls of fantasy, that's not what a top 25 list is for. So I'm totally okay with G.R.R. Martin being number one. Wouldn't be number one on my list, but I feel like it's a super legitimate choice. Number two, The Fellowship of the Ring by Tolkien, of course. Again, I completely agree with this. Both of these obviously are first books in a larger series. So I am assuming that they're just saying the whole series as a whole. We will see. Again, I have not really looked at their criteria at all, but these first two are pretty slam dunks. Whoa, here we go. First huge shock. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. I haven't talked a lot about Narnia on this channel. Wait, let's see. I think I have it. Yep. I have this big, beautiful illustrated edition, which I just love. And the stories I loved growing up. They're so simple, but they felt so large to me as a kid. And going back and reading them as an adult, you realize how simple it is. They're beautiful stories. I'm excited if I ever have children, or maybe with like nieces and nephews, to read this book to them. It's just fantastic. They're really, really nice. They are heavily religious, and I'm curious now, sort of as my religious viewpoint has shifted a lot, obviously from childhood, how they would be on reread. But the world is really nice, and especially I think the later books, like Voyage of the Dawn Treader and Prince Caspian, don't get enough pull as far as like showing how good they are. I wouldn't have it this high. I think because it's geared towards children, which is fantastic, I also think that it can't get as, I don't know, as in-depth in certain themes that I like to see in sort of my best of all times. But I'm not going to criticize it too much, but I think it's a shock to see us up high. I feel like Narnia has kind of, especially because of those terrible movies, sort of fallen off as far as like popularity in the wider culture is concerned, but I'm okay with this. Number four, Discworld. So yeah, they're definitely doing like just the first book, counts towards a series, because I've heard from multiple people that The Color of Magic, I always want to read that British spelling, Colour of Magic. I've heard from many people that's definitely not the best. So I think they're just putting whole series here. I haven't read any Discworld. I really want to. My friend Alan just did an amazing like primer. So if you haven't read Discworld like me and want to get started, go check that out. It was really helpful for me, and I'm going to start that for sure next year in 2021. 5, Hallelujah! Robin Hobb is on this list. She was not on, or was she on the Time Top 100? I don't think she was, which, complete bullshit. Her and Steve Erickson not being on there, complete bullshit. Robin Hobb, Assassin's Apprentice. I'm curious if they're counting this as her whole realm of the Elderlings or just the Farseer trilogy. Because I will say, I love the Farseer trilogy, but so far I've read the Live Ship Traders trilogy, and that is her best I've read so far to date. But you guys know, I love Robin Hobb. I'm glad she's on this list. I'm glad she's high. She's the highest ranking female author, like on this list. So we'll keep an eye on that. 6, Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. I have it right down here. Haven't read it yet. Will hopefully read it soon. Don't have a huge thought on that. 7, Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I think I said this in my Time review. I think actually An interesting thing about the time review is that they did individual volumes rather than series. This is obviously doing series and not individual volumes, because The Name of the Wind, I think, is a great book. I love The Name of the Wind. But Wise Man's Fear, the more I think about it, the more time I'm away from it, I didn't really enjoy. And so the series as a whole, since it's just 2 books, like, is a real mixed bag. But the first one is fantastic. If we're talking series, I definitely am not going to put it this high. But if we're talking individual books, I'm okay with this being up there. So, you know, a give and take there. Female author again, great. Dragonflight by Anne McCaffrey. For me, I wasn't a huge fan, didn't dislike it, not my favorite, but it is so influential to so many amazing authors, and for that generation, glad she's here for that level of influence that she has. Eye of the World, Robert Jordan, again, Wheel of Time. You guys know I love Wheel of Time. I haven't done a ton of content here, but this makes sense to me. Robert Jordan, definitely great. It does struggle at times with pacing overall, and so I think this is probably a good spot for it. It would be a little higher on my list, and I think a lot of that is sort of my personal experience growing up with Wheel of Time, but this is a good spot for it. Blade itself, Joe Abercrombie. So again, these aren't really like super surprising outside of Narnia being so high so far. A lot of people like Joe Abercrombie's Blade itself. I agree that he is a great author as far as how he writes. I wasn't a huge fan of this trilogy. As much as the writing is interesting and the characters are unique, it just didn't have enough oomph or enough, I don't know, overall excitement in the plot and the story and where things actually go to really grab me. I am very excited. I have his Best Served Cold that I just got, which is one of his first standalone books in the same universe as Blade itself. I'm very excited to get to this because I've heard that his plot elements get better and he still obviously is the great writer he was before. So I'm assuming I'm going to like Abercrombie more, even though I'm not a huge fan of Blade itself, or more particularly the First Law trilogy. 11, The Way of Kings, Brandon Sanderson, the Stormlight Archive. I've talked a lot about these recently, so I don't really talk any more about them. I'm sure I'm going to put some video up there that you can go watch, whether my rant on Oathbringer or a couple other things. I like this series fine. I'm actually kind of happy it's not in the top 10 on this list. I respect this list for doing that because most people just put it 1 or 2 because it's so popular. Probably like 11 is pretty good. It's still kind of high for me, but I understand that. Okay, 12. I was getting nervous that Melasma wasn't going to be on here at all again, which would have filled me with rage and fury. This still fills me with rage and fury at 12. I feel like that's not fair. I shouldn't say that. I was about to say that you probably haven't really read it if you put it at 12. That's not true. People like Malazan all the time, but I just think if you've read the whole series, the artistry of it, to not put it in the top 10 blows my mind, to be honest. I understand everyone's different, but if you've read the whole series, Malazan is so, so great. And when I say that, by the way, I don't mean like that you are not like a worthy fantasy author or reader if you haven't read the whole thing through, or you read a couple books and didn't like it. Like, I understand that. But if you actually sat down and like read the series as a whole and didn't like explode in excitement, like it was your thing enough for you to get to the end, and yet I just don't understand. I can't fathom getting to the end of this super long series and just thinking, oh, it's like 12th of all time. Anyway, I don't know if I'm communicating myself well there, but glad he's on the list at least. Should be so much higher. 13, Dark Tower by Stephen King. If anyone out there has read The Dark Tower, obviously there's a ton of people who have. Do you think I would like it? I have been so hesitant to read. I've never read a Stephen King book ever, and there's such mixed things on the Dark Tower series and him as an author anyway. I mean, people love him as an author, but like, if he can do endings well, and the ending in this kind of weird, and they're so big, and it's not really like sword and sorcery or high epic fantasy that is kind of my thing. So I just kind of stayed away from it, but it does appear on these lists a lot. So let me know if you guys think I would like that, if that's something I should put on there. Ursula K. Le Guin. Love that Earthsea is on here. I've only read 1 book. I'm going to be reading that very soon in 2021, so I'll have more thoughts there. Our third, I think, female author here. So again, the scales are unbalanced for sure there. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I've heard a lot of praise of this. My wife read this book and did not like it, so I have stayed away from it for that reason, but If you've read this, let me know what you think of it, if I should get to it. Because I just have no desire to, but maybe I should. Golden Compass, His Dark Materials. I'm going to start doing a lot more on this channel on this series because I just love it incredibly. His Dark Materials is a phenomenal read. If you've been scared off by it because it's sort of been couched as a young adult series, go to it. Go back to it because it is so fucking good. And I purposely said the fuck word because this is an adult series. I don't care what you've heard. It's so poignant in how it deals with religion, God, the existence of humanity and beings of higher thought, and so many good things, almost philosophical, philosophical things, as well as just such a fun world, and Philip Pullman is such a great writer. Just please read His Dark Materials. It's so good. Aragon by Christopher Paolini. This is fun. I'm glad this is on here. I mean, this list is obviously weighted pretty heavily towards, I don't want to say children's fantasy. Aragon is definitely sort of a more child, but like sort of a wonder aspect of fantasy, like fun aspects, because that's what Aragon is. I know it gets dinged a lot for sort of being a mashup of a lot of different classical fantasy elements, but I love it. I gotta be honest. I love Aragon. I've read it 2 times, one time in adulthood, and I just think it's fun. It's that like wonder. Like, I don't think I'd put it on like a top 10 of my personal favorite fantasy, but I really enjoy it. I'm a little sad that Paolini is now going more sci-fi because sci-fi is not quite my thing with To Sleep with a Sea of Stars, but I really enjoy Aragon. I find it delightful. Wizard's First Rule by Terry Goodkind. I have not read this. I think probably someday people might force me to read this and I'll have a review on it. I know a lot about the author that has me not liking this book, especially his love of Ayn Rand, but you know, you do what you can do. The Once and Future King by T.H. White. I am going to read this in 2021. This is definitely a weakness in my fantasy reading sort of history that I need to correct. Have not read much Arthurian stuff at all, and obviously this is sort of like the top of that list. So need to get on this. Glad to see some classics getting some run on this list. Raymond Feist, The Magician Apprentice. I have seen this at used bookstores. That's all I can say about this, gotta be honest. Prince of Thorns at 21. I don't like this book. I think it's grimdark for grimdark's sake, and not a likable or even interesting character. I'm not a huge fan of Mark Lawrence so far. I'll probably give him another run, but just not there for me. 22 American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I have not read this either. I've never read Gaiman. Now I'm feeling self-conscious about that. Anyway, I haven't read it. Let me know if I should. 22. 23 The Black Company. Hey, that just came in the mail yesterday. Boom! Or as Alan would say, boosh! So the Chronicles of the Black Company is the first 3 books in a single volume of the Black Company. Big fat book by Glenn Cook. Stephen Erickson is the one who gave a recommendation for this book, so I'm pretty fucking excited. He said, with the Black Company series, Glenn Cook single-handedly changed the face of fantasy, something a lot of people didn't notice and maybe still don't. He brought the story down to a human level, dispensing with the cliche archetypes of princes, kings, and evil sorcerers. Reading his stuff is like reading Vietnam War fiction. Wow, on peyote. So, that was a very Erickson-esque way of describing that, but I'm so excited to get to reading The Black Company. Like next month, I'm going to be reading this book and reviewing it here. So you guys are going to see very soon my love of Black Company. Well, hopefully my love. 9 Princes in Amber. Never heard of that. I have never heard of Roger Zelazny. Very interesting cover. Let's see. The One Real World, Amber, casts infinite shadow worlds of itself those with royal blood can manipulate. That's a weird sentence. But when the royal family is torn apart by the disappearance of Patriarch Oberon, the crown is up for grabs, and amnesia strikes Corwin, the crown prince of Amber, even the fact he is the rightful heir to the throne. A lot of stuff was just thrown out there I have not read this, so I'm interested. Let me know if anyone out there has read this and what you guys think of this. 25, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. That's incredibly low, especially in a list that highly weights for children's or more young adult aspects in fantasy, which I don't have a problem with. That's a taste thing. This is very surprising that this is this low. The series I really enjoy. Big part of my childhood. I really like Harry Potter. So, why did she have to say that? I don't want to get that on here, but I support trans people, who they are, their identity, who they choose to be, their self-actualization, all of that stuff. I hugely support. So I'm very sad that J.K. Rowling has chosen not to do that. But anyway, let's move past that because we have to. This is a pretty good list. I'm not super down on it. Depending on how they're thinking of some things, I would throw in some more sort of like, I don't know if the right word is mature but like adult-oriented fantasy. Obviously they had Erickson up there, which is really good, but like, I'm sad there's no Tad Williams. I always think he gets sort of short shrift. Please subscribe to the channel, and as always, let me know what you think of what I have said on this video. Obviously, just tell me what you think. Let's be honest, we all love best of lists. Anyway, as always, first in, last out.